Welcome to Habit Hacks, the funny science behind habit formation. In this journey, we'll delve deep into the intriguing world of habits. You'll discover why habits are more than just routine actions. They are intricate paths carved within our brains, guiding our daily lives without us even realizing it. We'll unveil the science behind how these paths are formed and why they can be seemingly unbreakable. Buckle up as we traverse the forest of the mind, exploring how to navigate the well-trodden paths and, more importantly, how to forge new ones. Stay tuned, for this is more than just a science lesson. It's a blueprint to change your life for the better. So are you ready to hack your habits and take control of your life? Let's dive in. Ever wonder why it's so hard to break a bad habit or start a good one? Our daily lives are a fascinating tapestry of habits. From the moment we wake up to the moment we hit the pillow, we're essentially following a set of routines that, over time, have become second nature to us. You see, habits are incredibly powerful tools for change. They're like the software running in the background of our lives, guiding our actions without us even realizing it. But as anyone who's ever tried to kick a bad habit or start a good one knows, they can be stubbornly resistant to change. And there's a good reason for this. It all comes down to how our brains work. Imagine a dense forest. Now imagine you have to walk through this forest every day. At first it's tough going. You're crashing through underbrush, tripping over roots, and generally having a tough time of it. But over time, as you walk the same path day after day, something interesting happens. The underbrush clears, the roots become less of a trip hazard, and soon you've got a well-worn, easy-to-navigate path. That's essentially what's happening in our brains when we form habits. Our brains are like that forest, and every time we repeat an action, we're carving out a path. The more we repeat the action, the clearer and more established the path becomes. And just like the path in the forest, once a path in our brain is well trodden, it becomes the default route. That's why it's so hard to break a bad habit. Our brains are naturally inclined to follow the path of least resistance, the well-worn path, even when it's not the best route for us. And that's why starting a good habit can feel like a Herculean task. We're essentially trying to carve out a new path in a dense forest, all while our brains are urging us to stick to the well-trodden path. So, if habits are like well-trodden paths in our brains, how can we create new paths or stop using the old ones? To understand why habits are so stubborn, we need to take a trip into the brain. Now imagine your brain as the world's most advanced and intricate car, running on the fuel of thoughts, emotions, and experiences. This car has an automatic transmission system, making your ride smoother and more efficient. This system, my friends, is your brain's equivalent of the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia, a structure nestled deep within the brain, plays an essential role in habit formation. It's like the brain's autopilot, automating certain behaviors to save energy. You see, our brains are energy hogs, consuming about 20% of our total energy intake. So anything that can conserve energy is a big win in the brain's book. Let's say you're brushing your teeth. At first, you have to consciously think about each movement, but after a while, the basal ganglia takes over, and you can brush your teeth while thinking about your to-do list, planning your day, or pondering the mysteries of the universe. This shift from manual to automatic is the brain's way of being efficient. But don't worry, you're not entirely at the mercy of your brain's automatic transmission. Enter the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for conscious decision-making. This is your brain's manual transmission. The prefrontal cortex allows you to make conscious decisions, override automatic responses, and essentially steer the car. So, when you decide to stop scrolling on your phone and go to bed, or choose a salad over a cheeseburger, you're using your prefrontal cortex. It's like shifting from automatic to manual, taking control of the wheel, and driving towards your goals. However, this doesn't mean it's easy. You see, the brain likes the comfort of the familiar. It prefers the well-trodden path of existing habits. But with effort, patience, and a little help from our prefrontal cortex, we can forge new paths, create healthier habits, and steer our lives in the direction we want. So, even though our brains might prefer the automatic transmission of habits, we can use our manual transmission to make different choices. Now, let's talk about the habit loop, a concept that can help us understand how habits work in our brains. Picture this: a mouse, a maze, and a chunk of cheese. The mouse represents us, the maze is our world, and the cheese, well, that's the reward we're after. The habit loop is composed of three components: the cue, the routine, and the reward. The cue is what triggers the habit. For our mouse, the cue might be the smell of the cheese. For us, it might be the sight of our running shoes that cues us to go for a run. Then comes the routine, that's the behavior itself. For the mouse, it's navigating the maze. For us, it's lacing up those shoes and pounding the pavement. The routine is what we think of when we think about the habit, but it's not the whole picture. The final piece of the puzzle is the reward. For the mouse, it's the delectable cheese. For us, it's the feeling of satisfaction after a run, the endorphin rush, the sense of accomplishment. The reward is crucial because it's what tells our brains, hey, this routine is worth remembering. So the habit loop goes like this. Cue triggers routine, routine leads to reward, reward reinforces the habit. It's a simple concept, but understanding it unlocks profound insights into our behavior. You see, our brains are efficient machines. They love to turn routines into habits because habits require less mental energy. The more we repeat a routine and experience the reward, the more our brains automate the process. That's why habits, good or bad, can be so hard to break. But here's the silver lining. By understanding the habit loop, we can start to change our habits. If we can identify the cues and rewards that drive our habits, we can tweak the routine in the middle. We can reroute our path through the maze to a healthier, more productive cheese, and that's the power of the habit loop. It's not just about understanding our habits, it's about understanding ourselves. By understanding our cues and rewards, we can start to change the routines in our habit loops. So, if we understand how habits work, how can we go about changing them? If you've ever asked yourself this question, you're in luck because that's exactly what we're going to discuss now. Imagine you're a gardener and your habits are trees. Some of these trees bear delicious fruit, while others have become a bit wild and unruly. The process of changing habits is much like the diligent work of a gardener pruning a tree. It's not about hacking away aimlessly. Instead, it's about careful, strategic cuts that guide the tree's growth in healthier directions. One strategy for changing habits is to replace a bad habit with a good one. Let's say one of your trees has a branch that's growing out of control, blocking sunlight from reaching the other branches. Similarly, a bad habit can overshadow your other habits. To deal with this, you might prune back the unruly branch, allowing a healthier one to take its place. In the context of habits, this could mean replacing your habit of late-night snacking with a healthier habit, like reading a book or going for a walk. Next, consider how changing your environment can help eliminate cues that trigger unwanted habits. If a tree is growing too close to a wall or fence, it might start growing in odd directions. Similarly, if you always eat cookies when they're on your kitchen counter, try keeping them out of sight. By changing the environment, you can steer the growth of your habits in more desirable directions. Lastly, let's talk about using rewards effectively. After pruning a tree, a gardener may use a fertilizer to promote healthy growth. In the same way, you can reward yourself when you practice a new habit. This positive reinforcement strengthens the habit loop, making the new behavior more likely to stick. Remember, changing habits is like pruning a tree. It takes time and patience, but the results can be life-changing. So grab your gardening gloves and let's get to work shaping your habits for the better. Changing habits isn't easy, but there's one key ingredient that can make all the difference: persistence. Picture this, a rivulet of water flowing down a mountainside. At first it seems to make little impact, yet day after day, year after year, that gentle stream of water carves a path through the hardest rock. It doesn't happen overnight, but with time and persistence, the water transforms the landscape. In the same way, changing a habit can feel like trying to carve a path through solid rock. At first, you may see little progress, you might even wonder if it's worth the effort, but remember the power of that water. It doesn't quit. It doesn't look at the rock and think, this is too hard. It just keeps flowing persistently until one day there's a path where once there was only rock. So too, your persistence in changing habits can carve new paths in your brain. Every time you make a choice that aligns with your new habit, you're reinforcing that path in your mind. At first, it's just a scratch on the surface, barely noticeable. But each time you choose to follow that path, you're making it a little bit deeper, a little bit more defined. There will be days when it feels like you're not making progress. Days when the old habits seem to be winning. On those days, remember the water. It didn't carve a path through the rock because it was powerful. It carved a path because it was persistent. This journey of changing habits is not about quick results, it's about consistency. It's about showing up for yourself, day after day, even when it's hard. especially when it's hard. Just as water can carve a path through rock, your persistence can carve new paths in your brain. Changing habits is a journey, not a destination, so keep going and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve.